Wildfires and floods are escalating, and so is climate anxiety. Consumers are part of a food system that accelerates environmental harm, and in return, experts warn that one of the biggest impacts of climate change will be a food shortage. I hosted a workshop with climate-conscious consumers to understand what gets in the way of being more sustainable, despite good intentions. There was a lot to unpack. We're facing an issue of psychological and physical distance that makes sustainable behavior change a nightmare. The American food system thrives on individualism. So we have agency, but it's misplaced in habits of convenience that produce waste and deepen our disconnect from food and community. My research confirmed that sustainability is not just about reducing harm. It's about renewing our agency in sustainable habits by rebuilding connection, both sensory and social. Hi, I'm Emma Brigaud, and I'm thrilled to present my thesis, designed to reconnect shifts in everyday food habits for a less wasteful future. Household food habits follow 4 key phases: buying, storing, consuming, and discarding. Today, I'll show you 5 designs that target these moments. To further investigate making sustainable purchases, I created carbon footprints and placed them in a store aisle. They simply nudge the buyer to choose the next best alternative from where they stand, because one step sideways in the aisle can mean one step toward making a difference, right? It's hard to relate to the 1,500 pounds of carbon emissions you could save by switching from beef to chicken once a week. We're at the long end of a chain that's largely invisible to us, but our actions have a ripple effect. Rather than calculate emissions, we should turn our attention to waste. Think of it this way. When you throw away an onion, you're also wasting the water, the energy, and the refrigeration that went into creating it. A food waste educator helped me reframe my approach to waste prevention. It's not just what goes in the bin. We can reduce it directly and indirectly at every stage. If we are to shift our habits to support a sustainable and resilient system, what is the vision and how do we get there? I consulted chefs, farmers, and municipal leaders, visited urban farms and markets, and read books on resilient food systems. From there, I focused on designing interventions that encourage buying less, eating seasonally, cooking more, and strengthening local ties. Foraging with Wild Man Steve revealed how delight emerges when we tune ourselves to what's available. And the cold chain is the antithesis of foraging. Commercial produce is bred for durability at the cost of flavor. A mealy tomato? That's the result of spending a life in refrigeration and being forced to ripen off the vine so it can be supplied to us year-round. I wondered, how might we make buying produce more like foraging? Exploratory, intentional, and seasonal. To experience this concept, I created Foraging for Flavor, a pop-up hosted at the Museum of Food and Drink. Visitors explored the relationship between ripeness and flavor to reveal how the cold chain manipulates both. For example, bananas in New York are force-ripened in warehouses using a color chart. People were quick to notice and vote for their preferred banana. But discerning what makes a locally grown tomato taste so much better than one that's commercial required more careful inspection.
Honestly, when you go to the grocery stores, appearance doesn't mean anything, where it's like, just because one looks perfect and identical doesn't mean it's better.
That's how they get you at the grocery store, because you can't taste everything.
That tomato feels like you're eating guts.
She's not the only one to react to a bad tomato. Online, I found comments like, depressing, ruined my entire month, soul-crushing. And in an interview, someone exclaimed, "Why have I never learned how to select a perfect melon?" These comments may seem dramatic, but we know there's truth to their bitterness. Language is one of our superpowers and a form of agency. If we can articulate our preferences, we can start to demand better from the companies who supply our produce. This led me to create Fruitprint. It's a digital tool to build your skill in selecting produce. In the store, shoppers can reference a quick sensory checklist. For example, distinct netting on melon indicates it had more time to ripen on the vine. At home, they can evaluate the flavor and use that to guide the next purchase. The real power of Fruitprint isn't just choosing well, it's learning what made it good. And when we know that, we can avoid waste, eat with the seasons, and shift demand toward better farming practices. Okay, so you've mastered the art of buying fruit. What happens when you bring it home? This brings us to how we store our food. We all know the saying, out of sight, out of mind. And even the most enthusiastic consumer forgets to eat their fruit until it's too ripe. Our fruit is a timed-based fruit bowl that prompts a simple daily ritual. Flip it, check the fruit, and decide if it's ready to eat. This design emerged from prototyping, where I set out to create storage that's not just visible, but invites active participation. This response reflects exactly the kind of shift I was designing for. Connecting to your produce, even just moving it, can tell you something has changed. It's really the human thing to be in touch and in conversation in these ways with our food. Let's see it in action. My conversations with Allison about uniting the household around food waste inspired me. As much as I focused on the habits of current consumers, I should also consider the future consumer. How do we teach sustainable food literacy? Because 7% of American adults think chocolate milk comes from brown cows, which makes it less surprising that 1 in 3 children don't know how food is grown or processed. If we want the next generation to shape the better version of a food system, we need to start with how they learn and interact with food. One model that provides direct access to quality produce and food origins is community-supported agriculture. But most CSAs are designed for adults, with barriers like higher upfront costs, inconvenient pickup times, and little engagement designed for children. What if we made seasonal and local eating fun, affordable, and part of the school routine? Introducing Schoolyard Market, a box of produce delivered at school pickup designed for kids and their families. What students receive once a month isn't just a box of veggies. It's a mini curriculum, designed into the packaging so families can learn by doing. On their way home, kids might learn that asparagus can grow 8 inches in a day. I found that fascinating. That night, they cook a plant-based meal together. No loose papers, no buried emails, no planning, just a simple shared experience. As one parent highlighted, it's a big ask to make healthier choices. So any way that you can make that process easier and make the parent feel like they're doing what's best for their kid, you have the right idea. The impact extends beyond a healthy shared meal. Schoolyard Market supports small farms by lowering the barrier to future CSA members and reduces waste through seasonal eating and composting. Leveraging social networks like schools is a tool we can employ for introducing sustainable behaviors. But there's another network that's equally effective. Disasterologists say knowing your neighbors can be the difference in surviving a climate disaster. But a series of polls and conversations revealed to me that many residents don't know their neighbors. I realized my task was twofold: design a way to facilitate households to lessen their waste while opening the door for connection beyond a passing hello. Shared Shelf is a platform for building residents to exchange kitchen tools and perishables. So say you would like to bake your mom's famous blueberry muffins for an event, but you don't have a pan. You would rather not buy one off of Amazon for one-time use, so you decide to check your building's shared shelf. First, you search the cabinet for a muffin. You see that your neighbor Sarah has one, so you send a personalized request. You pick it up from her, and when you return it, you also leave a muffin as a thank you. A month later, she asks you for the muffin recipe. Shared Shelf stands out from channels like Facebook Buy Nothing groups and Nextdoor because it removes the awkwardness of asking for favors. Knowing what your neighbor has on hand lowers the barrier to making a connection. It's not only convenient, but it facilitates care and reciprocity. Across this work, I kept returning to two anchors: knowing your food and knowing your community. When we know our food, we waste less. And when we know our neighbors, we share more. Designing for both opens the door to more sustainable, joyful habits. It's beautiful to me that in this year of research and design, I discovered for myself what Robin Wall Kimmerer echoes in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. She says, "All flourishing is mutual. We need the berries, and the berries need us. Their gifts multiply by our care for them and dwindle in our neglect. We are bound in a covenant of reciprocity, a pact of mutual responsibility to sustain those who sustain us. And so the empty bowl is filled." Cultivate your relationship with nature, but don't keep it to yourself. Let it permeate. Be a steward of neighborship, support farmers, savor the resilience and delight that comes with knowing your food. Thank you to those who gifted me their time, attention, and stories.
There's a tiny little UX element in there that the designers in the audience would have caught, which is, add first item, which I love because it actually nurtures a kind of expected behavior in a way that isn't bullying. It's great. All right, so Wildman Mike?
Steve.
Wildman Steve. Sorry, it was Mike or Steve?
I've talked about him a lot with those who've been involved in the work.
Foraging was a revelation for you,
It
right?
was. So early in my research, I was interviewing with experts and users, and about 5 people kept asking me, "Have you gone foraging with Steve?" And I was like, "Who's Steve?" And then, 2 weekends later, I'm in Prospect Park foraging with Wildman Steve, but also so many people. I did not expect there were people from, in tech, a vet,
Other Steves.
maybe, I'm sure. And so it was just a wonderful experience, and I think that really shifted my approach to the work, because I was just constantly feeling a lot of tension with, okay, what is corporate versus consumer responsibility, especially in this system. But when I suddenly was really just me with the land and realizing it's really about us connecting with it, and the delight that can come from things that are inherently sustainable, that's where I pivoted my approach.
It's perfect. I want that bowl, the timer bowl. I was thinking there's a lot of things I'd put in the bowl that I need to sort of check on.
Maybe it's not just brew.
What I'm thinking. So
Maybe your to-do list.
I think we're selling lots of products here today. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.